Hello lovelies, it's Victoria, your Countess, and tonight I'm going to do a little read from A Long Rain, but as usual I like to update you on what's going on with my vlog and my blog, which I blog regularly at WordPress, and my address there is mysteampunkproject.wordpress.com. So if you would check out my blog, I write about my art in general, what I'm working on in terms of literature, visual art, sculpture, two-dimensional, fashion, whatever I'm doing steampunky, and then with little bits of other sci-fi fantasy art that I write and work on, other geekiness type things, and a sliver of dog art, because that's what I do as well. So with that all said, appreciate you following me, and all my links also from my social media are in the blog at the bottom as well. So but just a quick update, I have a lot of nifty things coming up, written works, visual stuff. I'm currently doing a lot of masks, so check out the Etsy store. Etsy store is The Hot Hen, and I am adding some other jewelry and hats as well. So I'd love to, make something for you. So please pick out something if you see you like it in the store. The books are there, and the books are also on my Amazon homepage, which is Victoria L. Schultz, and Schultz is spelled S-Z-U-L-C because my family is Polish, and that's where the Countess comes from, is one of my distant relatives was a Polish Countess. So that's where my steampunk name moniker comes from. So tonight, all that promotional business aside, I'm reading from A Long Rain, which was my bestseller on Amazon. And I'm reading chapter 3 called Other Things of Note. And just a refresher, A Long Rain is what would happen if Queen Victoria lived to be 100, and if neither the North or the South won the Civil War, and England stepped in to rule the Americas. So from A Long Rain, here's Other Things of Note. The kingdom had a basic set of strict rules that was followed worldwide. The rules were posted everywhere that mattered: schools, governing buildings, and ironically, places of worship, because loyalists were honored to the Queen above all. The largest displays were in town squares. Some were embraced by angels or sculptural representations of Her Majesty. They were the greatest reminder of adherence to the laws, for any capital punishment was executed quite publicly in those spaces. I remember the first time I saw someone die in the center of the village. We had to walk 2 miles from the farm where we had to work that day in order to get into town. I was 5 years old and my legs ached from the early morning hike. My father was to return to the fields immediately after the noontime. For my very pregnant mother, carrying me wasn't an option, but we had to be there. It was law. The town crier approached a hefty wooden platform. He cleared his throat to address the crowd. Hear ye, hear ye. By Her Majesty's law, this man known as Marcus is guilty of treason for trying to escape work camp. Per Her Majesty's law, punishment is hanging. Bring the prisoner forward. The crier commanded 2 men who wore black hooded robes. Mommy, I started. I felt the tension of the crowd. Fear gripped me as I clung to her. Shh, don't you say another word. My mother bent down and hissed in my ear. A young black man was hustled forward. His hands were bound behind him. One eye was swollen. His thin linen clothing was ripped and splattered with blood. It was clear that he'd been beaten to set an example. Tie, the crier shouted. The executioners put a thick rope around the prisoner's neck, then fastened it to a large T-shaped pole. Place, the crier called out again. The prisoner was pushed into a specific spot. He stumbled and almost fell. Control him, you idiots. Several redcoats were amongst us in the crowd, and they laughed at the poor soul that was about to die. The crier continued, You're sentenced to hang. May God have mercy on your soul. And with those words, one of the hooded men pulled a lever, and part of the platform dropped out from beneath the escapee. The force from the rope tightening was so strong that the prisoner's tongue sprouted from his mouth and his good eye popped from his socket. It rolled off the platform and landed on the ground next to me. I screeched into my mother's skirt. A redcoat picked up the errant orb and laughed. A memento? Anyone? Anyone? That's enough for now, the crier bellowed. You can go home, but you can never leave. More bizarre laughter echoed amongst the soldiers. A voice from above startled me. Girl, look up at me. My mother hid her tears as she pulled on my hand. Follow the rules, Lavinia. Always. I gazed up at the words that had been inscribed into massive gray tablets mounted just behind the gallows. The rules were, honor thy queen and her sovereignty. All work is done in honor of her majesty. All property belongs to the kingdom. All are to serve the kingdom once of age. All able-bodied males are to serve in her militia for a minimum of 5 years. Any treason is grounds for execution. Honorable service to her majesty will be rewarded. In my undereducated 5-year-old mind, I hope to be rewarded someday and not ever be guilty like the prisoner who was left listing in the wind for almost a week in the square. That night, my mother miscarried my only chance at a sibling. The long walk and the harsh display of violence was much more than she could bear. So again, that's chapter 3 from A Long Reign. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. I encourage you to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. And again, my blog is mysteampunkproject.wordpress.com. And again, I've got a lot of interesting things in the works, a couple big announcements coming up soon. Can't announce them yet, but you'll hear about them, I'm sure. Thanks. Have a good night.